Hey guys, welcome back to Unforgiven Fishing. I'm the skipper. If you haven't seen our video on squid jigs and colours and other things, I'll put a link up here for you guys to go back and watch that. This is a bit of a continuation on from that to sort of clarify more on what to use, what size to use when you're drifting, how to set them out when you're drifting, how to pick your sleepers, how to pick your baits, whether to use a jag and a float or a squid jig. All right, let's get straight into it. First off, depending on your water condition, your weather conditions, and all of that sort of stuff, as we covered in the last one, is going to depend on the colour jig you're going to choose. On a nice clear day, you'd pick, say, a white jig like this. I've borrowed my Decky's box. He's pretty new to this. He's only got a few jigs. But a clear body, clear white jig on a clear day, nice bright and sunny, that's going to put out a silhouette that the squid's not going to be able to resist. And a white jig on most days works wonders. Now, he's also got a couple of other ones I'm going to use as well. But you could also go with a bright pink for those clearer or a bit of murky water, just to put out a different kind of silhouette. Or the darker colours like the purple like he's got here, which is a really great colour. That purple works wonders in the murky waters and the overcast days. Natural with a silver body, that's great for when you've got clear conditions and bright sunny skies. Same with the grey. The reds, they're more for your overcast days that are dark, cloudy, sunrise, sunset. That's a great one to use. That red underfoil really gets them fired up. I found my rainbow belly one. This one's great for when you can't choose which one's going to work, but mainly for those really bright sunny days is the best time to use it in clear water. Another rainbow belly in with a different weight. I'll explain the weights after. And a 2.5 in a different pattern with a bit of feathers underneath instead of on the sides. A 2.5 with all the colours, bright colours again. Bright sunny day, yellow, orange, green will work wonders. Now, let's go over the baits for your floats. Silver whiting is everyone's choice. Everyone uses a silver whiting. The difference is the way you put it on the jag. So spikes here, do you put the head here, do you put the tail here? And have it so that the head's up here and the spike's down here? Or do you have the head here so that when the squid attacks the back of the head, which is where they're going to go to kill their prey, the prongs are right there, bang, straight on. That's the way I do it. I put the head down, not up. Other people do it the other way around. Now, the other baits that are really good for these is fresh yakkers of a smaller size, so about the same, say about that 20 mil long, 20 centimetres, or even smaller, because there's no size limit on a yakka. They work wonders. Grass whiting's another good one, and also garfish. Now, Western Port versus Port Phillip is a little bit different. Western Port's got more tidal flow, so you're going to get more speed in certain tides. So what I normally do is, on my first drift, I won't put the float out, so the float will be pushed aside until I've worked out what way I'm drifting, how fast I'm drifting, and basically what the water conditions are like, how much waves there are, all the rest of it, how the boat's how the boat's going to move, what way the boat's going to move. So what I'd do is I'd pick out 3 jigs. So just for an instance, we've got low winds, a little bit of overcast, and very little tidal flow. So I'm going to choose to be, so shallow versus deep again. I'm probably going to start in the deep around 6-7 meters. So I'll go with Shane's deep jig. So this is a 3.5 deep. It's got a bigger chin weight. It gets down there a little bit faster. So that'll be my first one I'd put out. It'd be a green. And then I'd go with white in the normal 3.5. And probably in a bait fish pattern as well. So I'm going to be working this one on one rod while these two float at different, just probably about this far apart on the back of the boat. So yeah, about that far apart on the back of the boat at different depths. So one's going to be a little bit deeper, one's going to be a little bit shallower as we drift through the water. First drift is always just to work out what way the boat's going, what way the drift's going, whether we're going along the contour line, whether we're going in, out, doing the zigzags and covering from deep to shallow or shallow to deep, whichever way the tide's going, whether it's in or out. Port Phillip's a little bit different, like I said. Tidal flow's a little bit slower, unless you're right down the southern end. You're going to use more so the 2.5 jigs around Frankston, Mornington, Black Rock and other places like that. The squid are a little bit smaller. The tidal flow is not as much. You don't have as much to fight with. So a 2.5 jig in any of the colours that you would normally choose, depending on your conditions, or a size 3. Pretty sure these are my shallow. So these are a slower sinking, yeah, these are the slower sinking jigs. They've got a smaller weight and the chin weight, so it sinks a little bit slower, gets down into the strike zone and stays down there that little bit longer. And then when you work it, it just drifts down that little bit slower, which gives the squid a chance to go, do I want it, do I not want it? Then they grab it and you hook up. That's again, yep. Another normal one. I still, around Frankston, use Frankston, Mornington. If I was to drift around there, I'd still be using a normal size 3 jig, which is this one, or 3.5. I just like that faster sink because I like to really aggressively work my jigs. Now, talking more down towards Rye, Sorrento, Portsea, Queenscliff and other places like that, normal size 3 and 3.5s. You won't need the deeps so much unless you're sitting out in the very deeper water and you really want your jig to fly down that water column. So again, using just your normal size 3.5 jigs is plenty. Again, choosing your colours to suit your conditions of the day. Most of the time you will probably find yourself changing through 50 different jigs and then going back to your most favourite jig that always works for you because you've got the confidence in that jig and that's the one that you prefer to use. But again, you can go through 100 different jigs and catch 100 squid on 100 jigs. It all depends on the day. Same sort of rule applies with the jag in Port Phillip Bay. Silver whiting, grass whiting, yakka or garfish. Probably the only difference would be the size of the sinker that you'd run for your float. On this one, I don't know if it's here, there's a size 2 ball sinker on there for Western Port, and I'm pretty sure there's one that runs down to the swivel as well. Pretty sure I've got the 2 there. No, I've only got the 1. Okay, so There's only the one ball sinker on that one, and I've got a fishing rod that's set up the same with a squid float without the flasher. This has got the flasher float. The other one I've got has not got the flasher float, but it's also running 2 sinkers. So one near the bait and one near the sinker, just to hold them straight up and down in the tide. Okay, so that sort of covers the drifting. Let's look at land-based piers, using a float versus a jig. Again, more southern regions, having even a surf rod with a float on it would probably work best. Of Port Phillip Bay. If you're going to go land-based in Western Port, say San Remo, Cowes, Flinders, and places like that, or off the beaches at Cleland Bight, you want the deep jigs, again, to get the jigs down there in the faster currents. If you're going to work around the tide change, your normal 3.5s and size 3s will be perfect. They'll work fine around the tide change. Floats on either a surf rod or normal fishing rod. Surf rod's probably a bit better because you've got that extra reach to get the squid up. Now, pretty sure there's a little bit more I need to cover on that. Yes, that's right. Mornington. This would be your biggest size jig at Mornington off the pier. It's a 2.5 if you're working around the shallows. And a size 3. Try to get them both in the shot so you can see the size difference. Nose to nose, yep. Size 3 if you're going up to the deeper parts of the pier. You can still catch some big fish on little big squid on little jigs. I have seen a size 2 jig catch a 2 kilo squid right out of 200 mil of water right in front of my eyes. Watch the squid come out of nowhere, out of the weeds, in literally 200 mil of water. If they're hungry, another thing is, if squid are hungry, it doesn't matter the size of the jig, it'll attack it. They are very aggressive feeders and they are very, very protective over their eggs. So if you find a spot where they are nesting or anything like that and you waft one of these things through in an aggressive manner, they're going to attack it. I've had squid the same size or smaller than these jigs, 3.5 jigs, attack it, grab it and catch it. I'll add a photo in of that tiny little squid that took too big of a jig. Drifting retrieves. Okay, so working your jig while drifting in Western Port or Port Phillip, the best way to do it is to cast your jig in front of your drift. By doing that, that allows the squid jig to get up in front as the boat's moving towards it. It's got a chance to sink without anything pulling against it, like the boat dragging it along. It's got a chance to sink. You can work it so it's darting and jumping and doing everything that will give the squid a chance to see it, plus you're covering a lot more ground too because you're casting in front of the drift and working your way back around the boat. The other thing is also, don't cast in the same spot. Keep working yourself around the side of the boat until you get to the back of the boat and then start again. Back to the start and work your way around. Cover all your bases. Work your entire boat if you can. If you can get out on the nose and stand on the nose, stand on the nose. If you can't, stand at the side, cast to the nose, past the nose, and then work your jig back around the side of the boat. But again, working your retrieve will be different on every day. Squid aren't always going to want that aggressive dart here, dart there, dart, 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 and then sink. They might want that just hop, 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 or as simple as up, down. That could be all that they're interested in grabbing the jig is up, down. Or it could just even be as it floats by on the sleepers. Some days the sleepers will pick up more squid than the jigs you're working. Some days the bait will work more than the jigs, the artificial jigs. Now, setting your sleepers, as I said before, pick one corner, cast one back a little bit so it's got that little bit deeper, drop one straight off the back till you just can't see it underneath the back of the boat. With the float, you want to run that again, because it's got the sinker and the weight of the bait, you want to run that back maybe a metre, depending on how deep you are, depending on the meters, how many meters you're drifting in. If you're at anchor, if you're drifting, you want to run it back maybe 20 meters off the back of the boat, maybe 10 to 15 meters off the back of the boat. Again, depends on what you're doing, how fast your drift is, what part of the tide you're on, all of that. Land-based retrieves. So Mornington, I've found, especially working for those little tiny squid that, you know, we use for single hole baits for snapper, mulloway and all those other goodies that we catch in the bay, in both bays. Just that simple, cast the jig out a little bit, let it get as close to the bottom as possible, and then just slowly work it back like that. You'll see all these squid come chasing it. Once it gets there, just a simple up, get them chasing it, get them interested in it. Okay, you know, you can't have it. Yeah, no, yeah. Then when it starts to drop and it gets close to the bottom, one or two will try to attack it, and that's when you can hook them up. Now, a little bit different, say down, once you get past Blair Gowrie, you're going to use a 2.5 jig to a size 3 jig. Once you get past there to Sorrento, Portsea, that's where you're going to go up to the 3s, 3.5s, and even the bigger again to the 4s or a 3.5 deep, depending on how fast the current flow is. Now, in saying that again, you're going to want to vary your retrieves from aggressive, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, get the jig really moving, the really aggressive eggy retrieve that everyone's doing, to the 1, 2 hop, to pointing the rod tip at the water and just working the jig back along the bottom as much as possible. Just point the rod tip at the water and slowly move the jig along, making sure you put a pause in there for longer than 10 to 15, for about 10 to 15 seconds, to let the squid catch up and grab it if they are chasing it. And always keep an eye on your braid. If your braid suddenly takes off in one sort of direction, lift straight up. That could be a squid grabbing it, it could be a fish attacking it, it could be anything that's attracted to that jig and that movement. Flinders, your retrieves down there will probably be a little bit more aggressive, and also you don't want it to let your jigs sink too far down towards the bottom, because the weed down there is quite thick. You will lose quite a few jigs if you do. Also the boat moorings, you don't want to cast and hit the boat ropes for their moorings and lose quite a few jigs. I've seen quite a few jigs go missing. Again, float on a surf rod, hand line, whichever way you want to go down there, works wonders too. Also picking your tides. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Hopefully that covers everything to do with squid jigs, or not everything. I'm no expert, but again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please leave a like. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. I've got plenty more information videos coming out, more fishing content coming out. Coming into winter now, so going to be a couple of new series starting on YouTube come in the next couple of months. About a day or two after this comes out, there will be a comp that I'm fishing, so there's going to be some more fishing content. Alright guys, I will see you in the next video.